Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Planet X News, May 6, 2019. And ladies and gentlemen, a lot of you are already aware that we've had a lot of solar activity starting very, very early this morning. The sun produced a C-class flare that was categorized as a 9.9. Now, I've been monitoring the sun since about 2 a.m. this morning. You know, folks, I don't know, something just, again, woke me up and I was wide awake, went to my computer and started, doing some, just my regular monitoring of the sun and checking out the earthquake situation and so on and so forth. And then just about an hour after that, bingo, this X flare was produced on the sun. Now, at first I really didn't think much of it, but as the hours started going by, I started noticing more and more activity. And this is coming from that Sunspot region, 2740. And I was actually working on a little bit of a theory over the last couple of days why these sunspots seem to fizzle out or degrade, as scientists say, whenever they are Earth facing. And then they sort of regenerate whenever they get to the backside of the sun. So I was actually working on that first thing this morning, very, very early in the morning. Most of you folks were probably asleep. But now I'm not too sure about my theory. I may have to go back and work that out. However, I did put together a video earlier this morning showing this X flare on the sun. And lo and behold, I've been monitoring earthquake activity all day. And I have noticed an uptick, I would say over the last 6 hours. And then, bingo, the next thing you know, about an hour and a half ago, a magnitude 7.2 on the dark side of the Earth down in Papua New Guinea. The depth was, I would say, a moderate depth of only 127 kilometers deep. And there are plenty of other earthquakes, as you can see on my thumbnail, scattered from the South Pacific all the way across near India, Saudi Arabia, and on the eastern coast of Africa. The same thing is going to apply whenever we take a look at our earthquake map and I show you the rest of the world. And we're going to take a little bit deeper look at this earthquake in Papua New Guinea. And matter of fact, I'm going to go there right now, and we're also going to check out the activity on the sun because it doesn't seem to have diminished at all. Let me go ahead and pull up the live chat so I can see all of you. Okay, there we are. Alrighty then. Okay. Got it all together. Okay, folks, let's go ahead and back out of this thumbnail real quick, and let's get down to some business here. And we're going to pull up the earthquake map here. I'm going to go ahead and get this centered in the screen here, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at this earthquake. Now they're registering 2 here, but it looks like 3. They may be from different seismic monitors. I'm not sure just yet. This is registering from the USGS. This is 7.1, depth 137 kilometers. This is also registering from the USGS. All of them are registering. Okay, these may be... These other monitors may be picking up the main earthquake. However, there is a difference in magnitude and also a difference in depth. But they are all within the same proximity of 2 hours ago. So I would say that would be one earthquake of a magnitude 7.2, depth between 127 to 137 kilometers deep. That 10 kilometers is not going to make any difference whatsoever. I'm going to take a look at this real quick. That's in a pretty mountainous region. Oops, I lost it. They just updated it. Figures. We're going to just zoom in down here and see what we can see. Okay, yeah, this seems to be in a pretty mountainous area. There is a river. What does that say? Watut River. Yeah, it's a very, very mountainous region. I'm not sure how many people this would have affected, but let's go ahead and take a look and see what the USGS is saying. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the map right now. We'll go ahead and get the let's get the satellite view and see what we see. And go ahead and bring this over to Papua New Guinea. And let's see how many people that this would be affecting. Yeah, I wanted to get down in here. I wanted to see the historic seismic activity. That doesn't seem to be that much historic activity. You could see I turned on the little gray dots here, and only one other earthquake here. That looks like a doozy right there. And we're going to take a little closer look here to see what we can find. There doesn't look like there's very, very much as far as civilian life way up here, but you never know. This is the South Pacific. This is Papua New Guinea. Lord only knows. There may be some people living here, but at least it wasn't in a very heavily populated area. But as we start to pan out, excuse me, we can see the shake map, and this is identifying the areas of the most intense shaking. So if we just zoom in just a little bit, we get down into these lower areas down here, and I don't see too much as far as neighborhoods, large housing and things of that nature. Not within that area. Mostly a lot of these people live along these coastlines. But I am sure, as you can see the shake map right here, I'm sure a large number of people felt this earthquake. Now, how do I know that this was solar related from the solar activity on the sun? Listen, folks, I've been doing this a very, very long time. I've had so many arguments with people over the years that say that the sun, the activity on the sun has absolutely nothing to do with earthquake activity. That is completely 100% false. Okay, it's just not my opinion. There have been many, many scientists, even as of this year, coming out and writing abstracts and publishing papers about the solar activity and what it does to the Earth as far as seismic activity. And here's the thing, folks. Each and every time we see these events on the sun, hours later, what do we see? we see a whole entire string of seismic activity. And I'm going to go ahead and back out of the USGS for one moment, and I'm going to head back to my other earthquake map because it shows it a lot better. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. So we already see a fresh earthquake here in Alaska 55 minutes ago, magnitude 4.4, very shallow, 41 kilometers deep. A lot of activity already sparking right here in California. Small magnitude 3, 2.2, but you can see this is all following right along the San Andreas Fault. We're going to go ahead and break over here. Now, this is exactly what I was talking about. This shock wave that came in, and I'm going to go to an article that I wrote very early this morning. It was up on the Planet X News website, and I want you to pay very close attention to this area that you're looking at right now, because what I'm going to show you in the article that I wrote this morning is going to show you why that major earthquake occurred where it did. So we have a 4.8 in the Fiji Islands. We have a 5.5 in Papua New Guinea. And these are all about 9 hours ago. Okay, and this was about the time when the data started rolling in on this X flare. 8 hours ago, 4.9. 7 hours ago, magnitude 5. But you see that pattern. And I want you to pay very close attention to the area that it's in. So whenever this X flare popped off of the sun, this is totally different than a coronal mass ejection. Okay? We're not talking about electrons, we're talking about photons. Boom! The speed of light. And it doesn't take very, very long for these photons to make their way to the Earth. A hell of a lot faster than the solar wind. And we're going to go ahead and jump right into that article real quick. Just let me go ahead and pull up the Planet X News website, and I'm going to show you guys real quick. I'm going to go ahead and pull up this article. And the article, I had information coming in. I was gathering as fast as possible related to this C9.9 X flare. Hold on, folks. I needed a sip of my Red Bull, man. I got this new flavor, coconut berry. It's awesome. I think Red Bull should start paying me some damn royalties. Something. But anyways, we have a bunch of information to go over, folks. Some of you may have seen some of it already. Some of you may not. But we're going to jump into it real quick. What I wanted to show you real quick, I told you, remember that area on the earthquake map. I'm just going to pan down here real quick. You see this area right here? This area was hit the hardest. Right when that whenever that X flare went off. You see this? Here, I'm going to go ahead and bring this up real big so you can see it. You see that huge flash right there? Watch it. Bingo. One more time. Boom. And there is where you saw that string of earthquakes. And the area of Papua New Guinea, right where my cursor is, watch the flash. Bingo. I'm very, very surprised that there were not additional earthquakes up here in northern India and in China. However, dealing with Papua New Guinea, we are dealing with those very, very deep faults. There's not that many faults up there where my cursor is. If there were, they would be weak points. But there are some very, very weak points as far as fault lines go in that region of Papua New Guinea and Fiji. That whole entire sector of the Ring of Fire. And that is where we have seen some of the deepest earthquakes. I mean, we're talking 500 to 600 kilometers deep. And that's pretty damn deep. But unfortunately, or excuse me, let me rephrase that. Fortunately, it wasn't that deep. However, folks, whenever they do have these earthquakes that are closer to the surface, they actually do more damage. So it's actually not a good thing that that earthquake was as close as it was to the surface. But as you can see, this is what we're looking. We're looking at like the X-ray background, and it's kind of hard to explain this map. But this was the burst of energy that was absorbed by the Earth at that point in time. So this side of the Earth was actually facing the sun when this X-flare went off. Now, if this X-flare had gone off in the early morning hours in the United States, when people were waking up, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, whatever, then this huge blue flash that you're seeing on your screen now would be over here. So it was just a matter of, well, let's just say 8 to 12 hours difference, maybe less. So if that X-flare would have popped hours later on the daytime side of the Earth facing the United States and South America, we would probably be dealing with a much, much larger earthquake. Something very similar to what they're dealing with right now in Papua New Guinea. So I'm going to go ahead and jump out of this. And I was glad I was able to capture this when I did, because this was the first tool, the first graph that I went to see if this energy was captured and absorbed. And sure as hell it did. Bingo, right there. And it's just a matter of time, folks. This doesn't happen instantaneously to induce an earthquake. Usually, it can take a couple of days whenever we're dealing with solar wind and the heavily flow of the electron particles coming from the sun within the solar wind. But when we're dealing with these huge solar flashes coming from the sun in the form of photons, now that is a little bit different. That penetrates, it gets here faster, and it penetrates faster. So we were looking at approximately about 10 hours, 8 to 10 hours, and bingo, we have this massive 7.2 magnitude earthquake. And let me just say this, the seismic activity may not be over. We may see another earthquake close to the size of the 7.2 somewhere within that region, because that fault area of the Ring of Fire is very, very volatile. And you can see how far up this stretches. Now, there was already an earthquake right off the coast of India, dead center. So we may see some more activity in this area over the next several hours. If it occurs, you know where to find the information as soon as possible. There was a lot of activity brewing on the sun. This is just a quick clip, and this is showing you a pretty good filament release right there, but I have much, much better high definition footage that I captured first thing this morning. Now, I actually thought that this sunspot, and I'm going to go ahead and get out of this article for right now. I'm going to get into just some of the regular pictures here real quick. I'm going to take a good close look at this sunspot. Now, whenever you're looking at a sunspot, this red area right here, this is your negative polarity. Just think of it like a battery. You know, you have a negative and a positive. And you have your buffer zone in between, which would be your green. The blue area right here would be your positive. Usually, when these areas, this green area, let me just zoom in a little closer. It's going to be a little blurry, but this little green area right here, this is like a buffer zone between the negative and the positive areas of these sunspots. Sunspots are a little, they're a little difficult to explain. There's some science in there. I actually wrote up an article late this morning on sunspots and solar flares in a PDF file. It's available on our private network. If any of you are members, you're free to download it, read it, educate yourself on it. I may pull it up and we can check it out. Gives you the whole scientific background on these sunspots. So when I was looking at this late last night and again early this morning, I said to myself, oh, okay, well, this thing looks like it's degrading. And sure enough, what I did not pay attention to was this very, very thin area right here in green. So apparently that area has degraded completely, separating the negative and the positive. When that area degrades like that, well, all hell breaks loose. Normally, you are going to have a C class or an M class or possibly even an X class flare like we saw back in 2017, and we also had another one in 2018. Now, I'm going to be dead honest, folks. You know, I would have never anticipated anything like this happening at this time. You know, the sun's been kind of quiet, but, you know, we've seen this resurgence of these coronal mass ejections and this activity on the backside of the sun in the beginning of the month, and that was directly attributed to a direct connection with the Planet X stellar core objects on the backside of the sun. Now, the theory that I was talking about, I was kind of forming this morning, I was actually thinking that, okay, this sunspot is going to start to degrade. Why? Is because it doesn't have any more of that magnetic contact with this Planet X core. Reason being is because now, during its orbit, it has already started to drift down below the left side of the sun, below the ecliptic. So therefore, this magnetic connection with the core and the sunspot is now broken. But the only thing that I did not take into consideration is that buffer zone between the negative and positive polarities of that sunspot. So apparently that region, that little thin green region right there, degraded enough, and bingo, that activity was just, it was pretty wild. And I was watching it all morning. And let's go ahead and get out of this clip right here. And I've been watching these earthquakes. As you can see, I was plotting the maps out right there. But this was one of the first photographs that I took, and it was kind of blurry. I don't know why. I was trying my damnedest to catch this X flare. So this photograph right here just absolutely sucks. But we're going to go ahead and get into, I did capture it much, much better right here. And this was a high definition. I pulled this directly off of the Helio viewer. Oh my God, my mind's slipping on me. And as you can see, man, that is a beautiful, beautiful X flare. Zoom in all the way, and the reason why they call them X flares, well, you can see right there. They form this pretty pretty distinguishable X pattern of light, and it's just a flash. And whenever this occurs, folks, remember, this is sending massive amounts of photons just blazing towards the Earth at the speed of light. So that is, does anybody know what the speed of light is? What is it, like 186,000 miles per second or minute? My mind's slipping. But yeah, it takes, what is it, maybe 8 minutes for it to get to the Earth and start penetrating. And there it was. Now, this was not the only one. A lot of the space weather sites like NOAA and NASA, they only recorded this one C-class flare, 9.9. But as I started to dig in and look at the footage, I started to see more than just one. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up some of that video. There's one more look at it right here, and there's one more picture. And this occurred at 5:10 a.m. UTC time, and I'm on the East Coast, so that puts me 4 hours behind. So this actually happened. I woke up at 1:38 in the morning. So this actually just occurred 30 minutes before I woke up. Because UTC time, East Coast, it's 4 hours ahead. So that is, once again, a pretty damn good photograph in high definition. And anytime I'm using Helio Viewer, I don't care how long I have to wait for the image, I always produce it in 4K ultra high definition. The only one who got a better picture of that than me is NASA. This is coming from the SDO. I took this photograph using the 131 angstrom view of light, and I added the difference to it. It's just another setting. It gives us this kind of black and white look, if you just want to put it into layman's terms. And if we zoom right in, you could see once again really, really nice view of this X flare. And folks, you know, what was it? In 2017, we recorded a very, very powerful X flare that occurred right here where my cursor is on the sun, just as another sunspot which had degraded just like this one. And as it passed by in front of the Earth, nothing occurred. Big hoopla about it. I was watching it. Everybody was watching it. You know, Ben Davidson over at Suspicious Observer was watching it. BP Earth was watching it. Mr. MBB333, he was watching it. We're all watching it. And nothing. It was a dud. And then, as soon as that sucker got right over here, boom! A massive, massive X flare. And it was pretty impressive. You know, I don't know, folks, maybe all of you might not think this is too exciting, you know, but whenever you delve into this kind of science for as long as I have, seeing rarities like this with these X flares, yeah, it's a little excited, but as you can already see, it has caused some devastation. I'm going to be looking into what has actually happened in Papua New Guinea. The news will probably start to come out within, you know, this next hour, and we'll see what kind of damage that occurred. I don't think any kind of tsunami warnings will be in effect because it was so far high up in those mountains, and those mountains do have some pretty good elevation. But that earthquake was definitely felt ringing down all the way through those mountains. and down to the populated areas along the shoreline. So I'll be checking that out within the hour. But yeah, this is another good shot. We're going to go ahead and actually look at some of the actual video that I recorded of this, and I did a little video of it. I'm going to go ahead and bring this up, and this is just going to show you some of this activity that was cooking on the sun. And I'll let this just play for a few minutes, and you could see this is the region right here that I was looking at, and this is the region right here where that X flare occurred. Now, it's you just saw it pop off there, but it's very hard to see on the 171, the yellow version of the SDO. If you pay very close attention, I slowed it down just a little bit. You can barely see the X pattern in the X flare. You'll see these little ribs of light come out in the X pattern. Now, whenever you go to other angstroms of ultraviolet light, you can see it a lot better. That teal-colored blue version of the SDO, that is the best to view X flares. They just come out beautifully on that 131, I believe it is. But we're going to go ahead and jump out of this. Just wanted to show you that high definition look. And we're going to go ahead and pull this up real quick. And this is a split screen that I did here. And here's the 131. That's what I was talking about, the teal color. And this is the difference, the running difference. This was pulled off of the 211. But you can see the beautiful X flare there, and you can see the repercussion that it caused. Now that definitely looks like it was moving towards the northern pole of the sun and not the Earth. But again, it's very hard to tell the direction of some of these explosions on the sun. It's just very hard to tell. But on the right side of your screen, that is just absolutely phenomenal. That's a great view of this X flare. And as you see it, you see those little ribs of light. That's what I'm talking about right there. And that's how we distinguish those X flares. You can see those little ribs of light through the actual X pattern. And, folks, I'm going to be dead honest. That was pretty close to being Earth-facing. Even though it's on the eastern limb of the sun, it is still turning towards us. And that energy, once it leaves the sun, it starts to spread out. So, this would not show up on the CME tracker that we use because it's something totally different than a coronal mass ejection. So these X flares are totally different than a coronal mass ejection. The X flares, folks, they can actually be more damaging to the Earth. They get here a lot quicker also. A coronal mass ejection can take many, many, many hours, days to get here. And it can take days for those electrons and those heavily charged particles to penetrate the Earth, heat the core up, cause the disturbance, and set off the earthquakes. But when we get these types of X flares and this blast of photons, this can literally knock out satellites instantaneously. This can do all kinds of damage to our electrical grid within minutes, not hours. So that's why we have a bigger fear of X flares above and beyond the fear that we have of getting blasted by very, very large Earth-facing coronal mass ejections. Now, this sunspot, it may start to degrade over the next 24 to 48 hours. I'm going to see if this little theory that I'm thinking about is going to kick in. So if my theory's right, this sunspot should really start to degrade fast within the next 24 to 48 hours as it starts moving towards the middle of the sun, Earth facing towards us. The reason why I'm saying that is because it's lost its fuel. And its fuel would have been a magnetic connection with one of these Planet X objects. Now these objects are now moving downward below the ecliptic. They're going to be coming right back up in about 10 days. Okay? Now, here's the thing. I plotted this out back in 2017, thinking of the same theory with that other big sunspot that was rolling across the sun. The one that I mentioned that we were all watching, and it petered out. But, once again, I forgot about the factor of this Planet X object now coming back up in its eccentric orbit. And when it comes back up, where does it come back up at? It comes back up right here. And where did we see the massive, it was close to like an X20 X-flare. Where did it occur? Right there. Where was Planet X coming up from? Right there. Where did the magnetic connection occur? Right there. So during that time period, that sunspot petered out. It made its way across the sun, the front face of the sun. It made its way over to this point right here. During that time period, we were looking at 7 to 10 days. Nothing occurred over here. It just made its way. It petered out. It was basically dissolving, looking like nothing. And then it started around the backside, right there where my cursor is. The Planet X core came up in its orbit, and bingo, we had another major X-flare. Now, luckily, that sunspot was far enough to the eastern, the eastern side of that's the western side, the western limb of the sun, and it really didn't affect us at all. So, let's just see if this theory is correct. I may be wrong. I hope that I am. But now going back and thinking about 2017 and thinking about 2018 and how this was occurring and why, the pieces of the puzzle may be coming together a little bit. So we'll see over the next 5 to 7 days as this sunspot moves straight across the front face of the sun. And usually, folks, we'll see these sunspots pretty close to the equator of the sun, or the middle transitional point of the sun. So we'll see. I'm very, very curious to find out if this theory is getting close to being fact. Because if it does move over here and it does start to degrade across the front face of the sun, as it gets over to the western limb of the sun, and all of a sudden the Planet X object is swooping back up, making its tight orbit, if we get another discharge and another X-flare here, then I would have to say my theory is dead on. So it's just a matter of time. Give it 5-7 days. It may even be a little bit longer than that. It may go into 8 or 10 days, but we will see. Because we are it is the 6th of May. Yeah, that would be about the time. The middle of the month. Ooh, this is going to be a close one, folks. So we're going to be paying attention to this side of the sun between the 12th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, pretty close to the middle of the month right here. And let's see if this sunspot pops off with another huge X-flare as the stellar core moves its way back up, because that's about the timing of it right there. Go ahead, just move here. I'll show you guys some more. This one's a little a little blurrier. I took this from the SDO. I didn't take this from HelioViewer, but you can see the amount of activity, and you can see those large filament loops. They're massive, and that's coming from another sunspot trailing behind 2740. So there's a little bit more activity brewing behind this sunspot that I'm talking about right now. Those coronal loops are huge. Those are huge. And that is a lot of reconnecting, reconnecting, back and forth and back and forth. And it's an amazing thing to watch on our sun. Our sun is a very, very complex star. And it is pretty interesting to watch this occur. But in the same aspect, folks, when these things start to occur and they are facing the Earth, in today's times with all of our electronics and our electrical grid, and with as fragile as the Earth is in the sense of seismic activity and volcanic activity, it's just not a good thing. And you know as well as I do that people do lose their lives during these earthquakes. And any loss of life is just terrible. Let's take a look at, I believe, is this one a little higher definition? We'll take a look at this one here. And this one is in a little bit of a slower motion. And I took this off of the SDO HelioViewer 171 angstroms, and this is the difference view in black and white. Slowed it down a good bit so you guys can literally see that action that's burning right there on that side of the sun. And again, you can see the X flare. You'll see it pop off right there. Now, after I'm done showing these couple of videos that I recorded from hours ago, we're going to take a look at the Solar Dynamics Observatory, and we're going to see what's popping off right now. But it looks to me that there was more than just one X flare. But the biggest one was categorized as a C class 9.9. So that's moderate. But again, folks, as things start to change here on Earth with our magnetic field and our magnetopause, moderate occurrences like what you're seeing here today, moderate, to the Earth, it's going to be more severe. I could analogize it like this. Say you had a black and blue mark on your arm, and it was pretty sore. And then you bumped it again, and you know how painful that is. So that's basically the situation the Earth is in right now. The Earth has a bruise from all of this activity dealing with the interactivity with Planet X and this solar minimum over these last couple of years, and diving into this solar minimum. The Earth has a bruise. The sun has a bruise on it. The culprit, we already know what the culprit is. So anytime you bump that bruise, it's going to hurt like a bitch. So when moderate things like this happen, it's going to affect the Earth greatly. As we move further and further into this solar minimum, I keep saying this, things are going to pick up more severely. I'm not joking here, folks. I know all of you do take me seriously, and I'm not trying to beat a dead horse in the mouth here by repeating myself. But we are only in the beginning stages of this. I mean, we're just taking little baby steps right now. We really won't officially be dipping into this solar minimum for another month. as the scientists say. But I think we're already there. But to see this kind of activity is strange. And to see this kind of activity during this period of the beginning phases of a solar minimum is very odd and very strange. And if you understand the dynamics of our star and the possible interaction with another failed star or core or planet X, whatever you want to call it, this is what's going to occur. So even though, as they say, the sun is going to sleep, the sun may not put off that much of a magnetic field, which will disrupt the Earth's magnetic field. But we may continue to see activity like this. Coronal mass ejections, sunspots, X-flares. And if we do, the laws of probability start to take hold, meaning sooner or later you're going to be in the worst place at the worst time. It's just a matter of time. Yeah, that's what I got to say about that. So I hope all of you take this very, very seriously, because you are now living in a period of time that is somewhat fascinating, somewhat interesting, but also a very dangerous time. You know, some people may even consider this the beginning of the end times. Many, many people talk about the tribulation and what's going to happen. Look, none of us have a crystal ball. We can only rely on our inner faith and our knowledge. Those two things are powerful. We can never, ever allow anyone to take away our knowledge or the access thereof, and never allow anybody to take away your faith. We're definitely going to be moving into some very, very trying times, folks. You know, I can feel it. I can feel it in my body that just something is just telling me that, you know, it's not going to be a bed of roses. You know, we're not going to be having all of these joyous times here on Earth. I wish I was wrong. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the, let me just widen this up a little bit. And we're going to take a look here and see what's cooking. You know, this 48-hour loop, it kind of goes by a little faster. And if you pay very close attention to this region, you're going to see a lot of popping off. And I just saw, even with my eye, because my eyes are trained for this stuff, I saw what looks like another smaller X flare. And you'll see it start to pop off. There's one. There's two. There's three. So there were several smaller X flares here. I don't know if NASA and NOAA have recorded them as actual X flares, but I could see them plain as day with my eye. But they definitely seem to be somewhat smaller. It would be kind of hard for me to manipulate the slider on the SDO to actually catch them. I would have to pull it up on the Helio viewer and go literally like minute by minute or in like 15-minute increments and try to catch it right at its blinking point. But as you can see, the sun's very, very active. And I'm going to go ahead and jump over. Let's take a look at the 171. That's the yellow. Usually gives you some different views. And you could see this whole entire region right here, folks, because we're looking at this in a different angstrom of ultraviolet light. You can see all this dark black area. It's a huge area of disturbance on the sun. That's massive. If you compare all of that to, I'll tell you what, the size of my cursor, where my cursor is, and the size of it, that's about the size of the Earth. And that's about right where we should be, where my cursor is. So one way or another, as all of this brutal activity passes by over the course of the next several days, I'm hoping that it starts to diminish and go bye-bye. But it doesn't look like it. But again, we talked about this, in 2017 and 2018, as we were, in a little bit of a panic about these sunspots cracking off in this Earth-facing position. And like I said, they petered out. They didn't do squat. But when they got to the right side of the sun and they interacted with Planet X again as it came up out of its eccentric orbit, bingo, we had one of the largest X flares ever recorded. That was an amazing thing to see. I'll never forget that. I was actually sitting at my computer when the SDO updated itself, and I don't know, the timing must have been, a godsend, because I actually refreshed my screen and there it was. And I thought I was seeing things, and that X flare was huge. So we all catch a little bit of a learning lesson here today about how this solar activity works. We'll take a quick view of the 304. This gives us a little bit of a burning look at the sun. And you can see, now this will show us, oops, I accidentally stopped it. This will give us a better view of the solar flaring and filament releases. You can see the X flare just barely on this angstrom of light. The 304 is usually meant to see the filament releases. What you're seeing here kind of looks like flames protruding from the sun. Very interesting. And there was a very large filament release right there. I'm not able to slow this down on this damn slider. You'll see a dark region flash up right here. And that would be a pretty large filament release, probably a couple 100,000 miles long. It looks like it would be at least 150 to 200,000 miles in length. And that's just like a huge stream of plasma just lifting off into space. We'll get a little bit of a better look at it right here. If you just pay attention to this area here, you'll see it kind of wrap around. There it was. There's a lot of activity going on in this region, folks. A lot. I'm very, very surprised at what I'm seeing, especially during the beginning phases of a solar minimum, which is an 11-year period in which the sun kind of goes to sleep, as we say. The sun's energy decreases, the sun's activity decreases, and nobody really knows why our star goes into these 11-year cycles. When we are at a solar maximum, you would see what you're seeing here, all of this activity, you would see it everywhere. You would see it all over the front face of the sun. But during a solar maximum, the sun's putting out massive amounts of its magnetic field. So therefore, the Earth's magnetic field reacts and is also much stronger. So we kind of really don't, feel too much unless something is directed towards Earth, like a bullseye. And yeah, we would feel it. But the solar minimum's different. That's like going to a gun battle without a bulletproof vest on. Or a thin one, without the armor plating. So the armor plating would be the solar maximum. And, without the armor plating, you're into a solar minimum. Do any of my analogies make sense to any of you? So this is what we're looking at, folks. I'm going to go ahead and just check one more. We'll see if we can see what's cooking as far as coronal holes. We'll take a look at the 211 here. And I'm going to go ahead and just widen this out a little bit so we can see. And we can see the whole front face of the sun. All of this black region, folks, all the way down here, all of this black region. We will probably see increases in the solar wind right now, actually, and probably over the next couple of days. So we're definitely going to be into some pretty serious space weather this week. What is today, by the way? What is today? Monday? Yeah, so we'll probably be talking about this for the rest of the week going into next weekend. And we will see what happens. There's definitely a lot of activity, definitely a lot to talk about. We may see several more larger earthquakes. That's yet to be seen. But again, it's all possible when we're dealing with these types of situations. And I don't think that we're going to get any more Planet X captures for probably about maybe a week to 10 days. It all depends. So we'll see how this pans out. But probably, let's see, this is the 6th. I would say 13th, 14th, 15th, somewhere around there. Middle of the month is usually when we start to see or able to get these captures. So stay prepared, get yourself prepared, and stay in tune with all of the information that I put out. I know Mark over at the Blue Kool-Aid channel. Listen, folks, if you guys are not subscribed to his channel, get over there and subscribe. He's been doing some great work, some great observational work, and I love him as a friend. He's a really, really good guy. He's a straight up truther. Not like some of these other people on YouTube that just sit there and, just want to blow smoke. Tell you anything that you want to hear in order to capture YouTube views. So this is what we're looking at, folks. Stay tuned, and keep an eye out. There's also a lot of bad weather moving across the central part of the United States. So if you live in any of these areas, again, watch your weather. And as I've been saying, when you see these flooded roads, don't drive down them. Don't drive down them. People are losing their lives, and you do not want to be a statistic. You want to be able to pull up YouTube and check out another Planet X video. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm out of here for right now. If anything else occurs, you will hear from me. Thank you very much for all your support right here at Planet X News. Be safe, folks. Take care.